Well, hi, and welcome to today's webinar. It's part of the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement webinar series. I am Mark Graban. I'm your host and moderator for the session today. I'm a senior advisor with KaiNexus, and I'm really thrilled to be hosting this session today. It's titled Ask the CEO. We are joined by Bill Canady to talk about whatever you would like to talk about, but questions you have related to themes on profitable growth, 80/20 leadership, the future of lean, or whatever else you would like to ask. So I'll introduce him more formally in a minute, but our guest, Bill Canady, is the CEO of Arrowhead Engineered Products, and he's the chairman of OTC Industrial Technologies. About KaiNexus, if this is your first time attending one of our webinars, welcome. If you're a regular attendee, of course, welcome back. KaiNexus is an enterprise platform that's designed to drive continuous improvement and operational excellence and transformation across organizations. So if you'd like to learn more about KaiNexus, please visit our website at www.kainexus.com. So again, let me introduce our guest today, Bill Canady. He's someone who's been leading companies to profitable growth for over 30 years. Again, he's currently the CEO of Arrowhead Engineered Products, and he's the chairman of OTC Industrial Technologies. And under his leadership, OTC scaled to over $1 billion in annual revenue, with a 78% increase in earnings along the way. So Bill brings to us today and in general a unique blend of vision and execution. He's built what he calls the profitable growth operating system. So we'll have a chance to talk about that today if you like. That's a real world framework that helps align teams and drive sustained improvement. Bill is also the author of the book, The 80/20 CEO, and his second book is coming out later this month. It's titled From Panic to Profit. On top of all that, Bill is a Navy veteran. He is a summa cum laude graduate of Elmhurst University, and he earned his MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in to the questions. Again, Bill, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us here today. Just open-ended question to get the conversation going. How are you today and this week?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so great. You and I were talking earlier before before we kicked off, and we both just got back from Australia. So I'm doing great. I've recovered from that. I got over my cold. I think I caught on the plane. I told my wife, I said, I think I might be patient zero if I'm not careful. So
No.
we're doing great. It's wonderful to be on here, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at all the names roll through where everyone's from. So we got a lot of Iowa City and a couple Iowa people here, and one from Norway. So we're global, my friend.
Yes, it's an international crowd here today, and I know you have a lot to share that'll help people in different locations and different industries. One question I wanted to start off with, and then there's a follow-up question that was submitted in advance on the topic. Going back to the title of your first book, if you would, give us an overview of 80/20 leadership and what that means to you and the businesses that you lead.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really kind of the core of the whole piece, right? So at the end of the day, when you get your first role, maybe you've had multiple roles being a CEO, you show up, you ask yourself, what am I going to be doing? Where do I start at? And what we always suggest is you got to start with the data. You got to take and look at the facts and figures. And we think of 80/20 as kind of the brains of the system. And what I mean by that is if you look at the data, you figure out where you're making money and where you're not. Now, this is going to be really complex. Go do more things that make money and do
Mhm.
less things that don't make money. And then that's when you start rolling out all the great tools, whether it's lean or continuous improvement. If you have a factory that's not doing well, the first questions you should ask yourself, should I even be in this factory?
Mhm.
Once you know you should, that's when you bring lean and other tools to bear to make it so it can be the very best it can be.
So there's strategic decisions about what product lines or what business areas. I mean, those high level strategic decisions first, it seems.
Absolutely. As a CEO, my goal, my job, the thing I own is what is our actual goal? Where are we going? Right.
Mhm.
Typically, I'm in private equity. And as you said, I'm involved with several companies, and a couple of them I have leadership roles in. We try to determine what does good look like? And for us in private equity, It's a thing we call MOIC, or multiple on invested cash. So for every dollar that the private equity sticks into it, we're looking for 3 times back, right? What that does for us is it gives us clarity of how big the prize is. So if you're at $100 million, let's just say, whatever how you do it, 100%, we're looking to get to 300%. Once we know the size of that goal, that's when we start bringing things in like strategy. So how are we going to get there? What tools and processes we're going to go use from it. So it's critical for my role to determine what that goal is. And then the team's goal is to figure out the strategy of getting us there.
Hmm. So we had a question that was submitted in advance by Kurt, who asked, where is 80/20 leadership most effective, and which areas of the business is it less important than others? And maybe I'll tack on, is 80/20 leadership that kind of scales down through different levels of leadership in terms of using the Pareto principle or 80/20 thinking to prioritize things?
Yeah, so I don't know that there's one spot that's more effective than the other. We really try to roll it across the whole company. So we try to make ourselves data driven, and which is really what 80/20 is all about. Call it whatever you want.
Mhm.
But it you want your company speaking a common language with a common goal in it. And the fewer goals you have, the better off you're going to be. It's hard to do 1,000 things. You can probably move those all an inch, and if you can move them at all, but you can pick 1 or 2 things that are meaningful for the company. It's meaningful to achieve your goal. You can generally get those across the finish line. So we use it as a way to organize the business, to
Mhm.
understand where we're going from it. It's like being a carpenter, right? So 80/20, all these are just tools. You need to know the blueprint of what you're
Mhm.
building. And once you know that blueprint, which is, again, starting for us, it's around an economic return. Once we know where we're going, we can build a strategy, we can design a blueprint that will get us there. We're going to use tools like 80/20 to go do it. So we're not looking for 80/20 or lean or any other tool set to be in addition. We're looking
Mhm.
to run our business through these tools, through this framework.
Yeah. So one challenge that I've seen in a lot of healthcare organizations, and that this happens in other companies, including in manufacturing, is having too many, quote unquote, top priority initiatives. And sometimes there's just great benefit that comes from trying to scale back from, like, at one health system, across the C-suite and the senior VPs, there were something like 300 different projects and initiatives that were all deemed top priority by somebody, and the organization had to make some choices and kind of scale back. Like, we got to focus. So I'm curious if you've had similar experiences, or seeing the benefit of where scaling back and not necessarily canceling things, but saying, hey, we got to do some of them now, then we'll move on to others. Has that been part of the approach in your experience?
Happens 100% of the time. And it's interesting. It's amazing how you offend people, or you make them feel like they're worth less when you say, well, we don't want to do this project, because they'll equate it to what their job is. Well, geez, if you
Mhm.
don't like this project, maybe you don't like me, or maybe my department's
Mhm.
not important to you. And so this is why when we get together as a team, when we start out and we determine where we're going, what our goal is, what destination, what good really looks like, we ask ourselves as we go around the table, what is the strategy that we need that's going to get us there? And not the strategy by a group. So not what our sales strategy is, or our operations, our finance strategy. What's the strategy for the company? And is it big enough and meaningful enough that it actually works for us all? So think about what you said before. If I have, for every goal that comes out of the CEO's office, if you action plan that out, if any of you guys use policy deployment, like the old
Mhm.
X matrix and the action plans and the
Mhm.
TTIs, if those terms resonate with you, you'll know what I mean. But I'll try to keep it pretty simple. If I say that our goal is to get earnings, so we'll just use a percentage from 10% to 15%, that's one goal. There will be 100 targets to improve by the time it gets just to the action. And that 100 targets to improve are going to translate
Mhm.
themselves probably across 1,000 action plans if we're a company of any size at all. So if
Yeah.
I have 10, I don't have 10 goals that is reaching the group out there. It's 1,000 times, it's 10,000. No company can survive 10,000. And the way that we know
Right.
this as we look at the names that are against it, it turns out to be all the same names doing all 10,000, right?
Yeah.
So we try to fully staff the first one, say what's left over, and then go to the second. And it's no more complex than that. Keeping
Mhm.
focus is really the key to it.
Yeah. So another question I wanted to ask, and I think it helps us kind of learn about your background and experiences, Bill. How did you come to believe that, whether we call it lean or operational excellence or continuous improvement, how did you come to believe that that's so important to a business? Because that seems to not be on the radar of every CEO out there.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical, right? And it comes down to resources. So our process is really simple. So we start out, we look at the data, we ask ourselves, where are we making money, where we're not, and that's really all it is. And then we force rank that. We'll put those in quads, right? So our top quad is our best customers and our best resources, right? Once we understand that, in order to organize ourselves around that number one opportunity, we don't have extra resources. We don't have buckets of money sitting around. We don't have a whole army of people. We can't afford to go ahead. In fact, we probably have too many. That's why our numbers don't look good. Our goal, our job is to take the resources that are being underutilized, whether it's people, whether it's capital, whether it's factories, and shift those to our top resources. When you do that, you make chaos in a business. If you shut a factory down and move all those resources, those tools, those machines to it, they have to get laid out again. There is no better tool on the face of the earth than lean to come in, take your business, and again, if I'm using too many terms, from order to cash, we want to lay
Yeah.
out how it's going to flow through the business. Then we want to walk in that factory, and we're very visually driven. We want to lay that factory out so it's a very common way. And I'm trying to keep this at a reasonable level here. The only tool set that works well in it is lean. Lean's about waste
Mhm.
reduction. It's not about variability reduction. If you're into that, you might be into Six Sigma. But for us, and in our manufacturing and many manufacturing today, it's about redeploying resources and then laying them out properly. The best game in town to do that is lean.
Mhm. Yeah. And when you talk about order to cash, you go even going back to Taiichi Ono and his books on the Toyota production system. I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's a pretty direct quote. All we're doing is reducing the amount of time that elapses between the order being placed and the cash being received. And I think that business flow is more, it's more broadly encompassing than just thinking production flow or supply chain. Like this includes business functions and other possible improvements that reduce that time to cash cycle, right?
Absolutely. We track our cash conversion cycle, or CCC, depending on whatever you call it. But it's how long does it take us to take a dollar and get that dollar back, right? In really, really simplistic terms. And the natural thing that we all do, that we've done for years, is we go out to what we call the concrete, right? And we start kaizening, we start leaning, we start doing all the things that we're going to go do. A lot of times where the real opportunity today is actually on the carpet side, right? In the
Hmm.
office, because
Hmm.
maybe it takes a day to do a drawing. Let's just say that it takes a day. There might be 4 or 5 weeks of setting time while that drawing is waiting to get done on it. Whereas for us, like I remember early in my career, we would take and calculate what's the drop time, a drop complete, right? So if we were going to make a fitting, we would want that fitting to come in as a bar stock, and then on the other end of it, it comes out in a nice fitting in a box. It's ready to ship to someone. It turned out that really where the waiting time was getting it through engineering, getting it through sourcing, getting all that material there. That was a target rich environment for us. So we like to look at the entire cycle, because there's huge, it's not so much the production time that does take a long time. You can start looking at SMED or single, the how long it takes you to change your dies. You can
Right.
start looking at that, but maybe you're 9 minutes and you're going to take it to 7. It'd be much better if you can take that 13 weeks of waiting time for engineering to get it through there. So it turns out
Right.
that'd be a whole lot more impactful for you.
Right.
Learning that and getting people who normally don't think about continuous improvement involved makes a big difference.
Hmm. So one other question, I'm curious because we have an opportunity to hear from a CEO here, and Bill, what's your role when you think about operational excellence and of all the things that you're responsible for as a CEO? How would you describe your role? And thinking, if you're looking at other businesses, other CEOs, are there things that you wish other CEOs would do more of when it comes to continuous improvement or operational excellence, or are there things that maybe sometimes they should do less of?
It's an interesting question, right? So in my mind, we have three basic pieces that we have to do and we got to get really good at. So the first one is determine where you're going. We talked about that earlier. The second piece is measuring and monitoring. That's regularly looking at the metrics, talking to your team, letting them report out on how it's going, and then using your process. A lot of people might use a 3-in-1 or a 3A, call it whatever it is, but it's the what went wrong and what are we doing about it charts on it. The final one, and I actually think this is the most important and it's the hardest one to do. You kind of got to make it a condition of employment,
Mm,
right? You're going to follow this process. I'm not saying we're robots, but we're going to use lean. We're going to use our talent process. We're going to use M&A. We're going to use 80. These are our tools and techniques. It's a condition of employment to be here that you're doing that and going on with it. Otherwise, what happens is for us, time is really money. So in private equity, we
mm,
come in, we're thinking on 1,000 days. In 1,000 days, I need this company turned around, aimed in the right direction, fully functional, so I can get a return in my capital. Every day I miss that by is going to take, and it's going to be a cost for us. The only way you can make that happen is you got to get your team in there aligned around just a critical few things. It takes a strong leader to make that happen. It takes a good team about who are dedicated to it. We call it the rule of three. You need a strong visionary. Sometimes as a CEO, typically it is who says this is where we're going, and they're going to make sure that people follow it. The second one is the operators. The people actually have to go do the work. That's the
mhm,
presidents, that's the directors, that's the managers, the VPs. Those are the people running the company. They need to follow the process. The third one is you need help. We call them prophets, but really what it is, you need someone who's been there, done that, someone like Mark or someone that's got experience. You need to bring those experts in, make sure you adopt those processes, not just do it and go away, right? We all have that great strategy book that's still sitting on our top shelf we never did,
yeah.
but use those to train yourself so you get those skill sets inside so you can go faster. Don't try to reinvent the wheel here. Call the experts, call people like Kind Nexus. They'll help you, they'll make it better for you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Bill. You were talking about profits. That's profit with a PH
It is. It
in the
is. It's our
middle.
little play on the
Yeah,
word, right? Like Moses
yeah,
come down with a test, like follow us, we'll show you how to get there. And plus, it's the word profit, and we like money, so it's really those two things. That it's our little inside joke, and
yeah.
it's got legs to it.
Well, so again, the title of Bill's new book coming out soon is From Panic to Profit, and that's the profit with an F in the middle. There we, so
There you
hope people
go.
will check that out. And I put a link to Bill's books on Amazon in the chat. Um, there's a question that came in from Regina, who asked Bill, what's the best way to convince top leaders that they need lean in their efforts and that it's not only about the immediate bottom line, but rather also an investment in capabilities and people that will be in the long game of business success?
Yeah, that is it's hard to. What's the old saying? We can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. If you've done this before and you've been part of it, and you've seen real turnaround in businesses, you recognize that it's the consistency and proven processes that make a difference. The other thing I've learned is the world's best strategy, the world's best tool, if no one follows it, it doesn't matter. You can have an average strategy with an okay team that everyone is dedicated and excited. You can change the world,
Hmm.
right? So when you have a leader who doesn't want to do it, all you can do to them is show them the facts and figures, right? And say, look, this is what good looks like. There's a lot of prior art out there already. Many of you on this call today, I'm sure, have either been in or are associated with or know where you can get those figures from. The data doesn't lie. When you
Hmm.
have a strong process with a team that follows it, you're going to win, right? So start with that. And if you can't get those folks involved, you can't get it, you might be in the wrong company, right? Because that
Hmm.
it's going to hard it's hard to win when you're directionless and rudderless.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think, you're trying to engage, thinking of something you said earlier, you're trying to engage everybody in improvement. And I'm curious your thoughts on, all of the little small Kaizen improvements that can be done maybe simultaneously in combination with the bigger strategic initiatives that might be prioritized and selected based on strategy deployment or Hoshin planning or all the different terms that people use for that. I'm curious how you see those fitting together culturally.
Yes, there's a couple pieces to it. So the first, and I think really good leaders do this, is you engage your team. My team is way smarter, and there's many hands make light work. So I don't know it all. My job is to take and challenge them to come up with the strategy and the tools and the processes they're going to be using in this, and then hold them accountable. And I do that through how we measure and monitor. So if you use Bowler charts, or you might have some software or whatever, but you need to make sure that you're reading that, you understand, and you're asking, the five whys. This is basic blocking and tackling. What
Hmm.
happened? Why did it happen? What are we going to do about it? And you got to get down to the root cause with this. That's the leader's job. That team, when you take that job on, it's incumbent upon you to figure out the best way to go do it. Now, we expect you to use the tools. We want to see you using a Hoshin chart. We want to see you doing Kaizans. And in fact, we're going to set up a meeting where you get to report out on how did that Kaizen go? What did we do? What was the result? So we ask the questions through the language and the framework that we're using, because we expect to get that result back, right?
Hmm.
At
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's about good people being empowered and letting them go do the job. So there's a few things that we have. There's four things, in fact, that we use to that we think actually brings excitement and energy. So the first one is be data driven,
Hmm.
right? You're not going to have all the data. You don't have to have all the data, but if you've got less than 20%, you're guessing. If you got more than 80%, you probably took too long and everyone else passed you.
Yeah.
Be data driven. The second one, no surprises. Fish and relatives and bad news all stink after 3 days, right? Make sure you keep people involved. What's happening? Where is it going? Right?
Yeah.
With it. And then this one, I think, which is probably the most important, is results matter. We will
Mhm.
not be a best efforts company, right? We will not be a best efforts company.
Mhm.
We have to have some wins. Now, maybe 300 in baseball gets you to the Hall of Fame. Here, we need to bat 700 to 800. We got to win more than we lose, because we're in the process of selling,
Mhm.
something, with it. And then the final one is progress, not perfection. It's okay if you didn't get it right. And try not to make the same mistake twice, but let's
Mhm.
keep moving forward. I think that's really one that we took from the Japanese more than anything else. And those of you of a certain age, maybe remember when the Honda Civic came over, it wasn't very much of a car, but look at that thing today. They didn't get there all at once.
Mhm.
They got that mirror right, then they got that air vent right, and then there that little knob went on there. And they learned it, and they continue to make cars that people can rely on and be excited about and energized, and they go tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles. Just look at the Toyota Tacoma. That's the
Yeah.
game we're in, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
continuous improvement, little steps every day out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, those Japanese imports at the time, and now a lot of them are built here in the US. But yeah, I mean, they had the reliability, but
Yep.
then, some of the other nice features, the other dimensions of quality, the styling, the look and feel, lots and lots of improvements over time. Um, Another question came in, and I think it kind of prompted by the previous question about different modes of improvement. So Emily asked, how do you move an organization's improvement strategy from doing large improvement projects like Kaizen events or sprints to doing true continuous improvements through small incremental improvements every day? Do you believe there needs to be space for both of these to coexist?
100%. These rapid improvement events, call them whatever you want, but instead of it being a 3 day or a 4 week, maybe it's just something we did before lunch, right? We don't have to get so formal with it. I think it starts right with leadership. One of the most powerful things we use is daily management. Every day, we're going to stand up in front of a board, ask ourselves what's going on. And it's not me talking, it's right. It's the people living with it, right? They talk safety, quality, delivery, cost, plus whatever else is going on. What's the thing that didn't work before? We want to find that early, solve that problem that day, and come up with a permanent solution, right? So these little rapid events is really how you make the difference, right? It's
Mhm.
really how you get continuous improvement day in and day out. And it's about a mindset. It's the same way with safety, right? You start out and you're like, okay, let's not let's not do any terrible damage, crush people, hurt people. But
Mhm.
then we start looking at near misses, right? Like things that could have happened. Same way here in continuous improvement. As you get more mature and as you do that big relay out of your line. The next thing is maybe your bins are not in the right place. Maybe we should be using a light curtain. Maybe there's a thing that we can be doing with air. There's all these different things we can do. It takes the people on the line who are living with it every day, raising their hand and saying, I want to go do that. Now, I recognize it takes the right kind of culture where people are comfortable doing it. They can raise their hand and they're heard when they're doing it, right? But it
Mhm.
starts with each one of us. Let's raise our hand, see what happens. You might be improved. You might be surprised.
Yeah. Um, there was a question that came in from Michelle. You talk about learning from mistakes, and for some, the question disappeared. But going off memory here, Michelle, maybe re-enter that if I don't have this quite right. But Michelle asked an interesting question of, are there mistakes that you've seen? Oh, here we go. What's one mistake you see leaders make when trying to drive cultural transformation through lean or the 80/20 leadership approach?
I think there's several. The first one is making it like some forced death march, right? Hey,
Mm,
I know all the answers and you're going to do it this way. I'm going to fire you, right? That will not work. I said before you made it a condition of employment,
right.
but that doesn't mean it has to be painful. It just means people got to start doing the stuff, right? Starts at the very top. You won't need titles. I saw a question come in about what about members' titles don't mean anything. I get out there and do Kaizans. My badge doesn't say Bill CEO, it just says Bill, right? Now,
Mhm.
I'm not foolish. I know they know who I am and things like that, but I help move and sweep up the floor like everyone else. It's us getting in there and using the philosophy of many hands make light work. So,
Mm,
first of all, ask them. Second of all, let them go try it. So,
yeah.
listen to what people have to say, then encourage them to do it. And guess what? They're going to move that ball forward probably faster and quicker and in a more meaningful way than I would have done because they're living with it every day. And you
Mhm.
praise them and you thank them, you reward them whatever you can. Sometimes it's a pizza party, sometimes it's an attaboy, sometimes it's capital, right? There's resources that go into it, whatever it is. But it's that listening and learning and leveraging what you learn together is really where people want to win. People want to be
Mhm.
part of a winning team. Let them go show you what they can do.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's great when you talk about, needing to win. You're not setting, I don't hear you setting the bar on improvement wins, if you will, at 100% success rate. What are your thoughts of when somebody has an idea, a concept, they implement it, and the prediction of success turns out to be a little bit incorrect. We tried something that we thought was going to work, and it was a quote unquote failure. What are some keys for leaders, kind of reacting to situations like that and helping people through that kind of situation in a way that's best for the business?
Yeah, I think it was Thomas Edison said something to when they was trying to do the light bulb. He had failed 10,000 times. It didn't work, right? And
Hmm.
he was being interviewed, and the reporter reminded he goes, I didn't fail it. It's I just moved 10,000 things that didn't, out of the way. Now I can, get down to it. It's the same thing here with us, right? You should expect that. You should encourage it, right? And there's all sorts of different types of failures, right? We try to do small pilot projects, so we don't want to bet the
Mm,
farm if we're wrong. We
yeah,
try to take and do it in one small section of the factory before we shut the whole thing down, right?
yeah.
So, some common sense is going to help go a long ways. Take a small line that's kind of out of the way and try your new idea on. Expect it to fail, but you
Hmm.
should expect to get learnings out of this, and you should be able to take those learnings, apply it to the next one, so you can go faster and really be impactful on it. Your
Hmm.
failure will typically, even if it doesn't go right, will be such a powerful learning tool. And if you've
Hmm.
got the right people in the room, it's a game changer a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
You prove out some theories, you're able to say, well, we don't want to do that. And almost in every case, you learn something that does improve whatever you're
Hmm.
already doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that emphasis on celebrating or at least embracing the learning. Because I mean, I think if a leader were demanding a 100% success rate, people would get very cautious. There's a related thought. I forget who to credit this to. Um, if you know the outcome of the experiment with certainty, it's not really an experiment.
It's not an experiment. The other thing, if you set activity based, I remember early in my career, I was in a company and we had to do so many Kaizans. So guess what? People went out and did so many Kaizans. They were absolutely useless,
Oh,
right?
it's just
It
like
was
to
a
hit the quota, to hit the
yeah, just to
target.
hit the
Yeah.
quota, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, and so you got to move away from activity based. You got to move away from, if you're not 100%, it's a failure, because then they'll only pick projects they know they can win at.
Mhm.
Nothing's going to be really change from it, and then they will only do what I call as if or performer projects to go. And we didn't actually do this because I participated in some of those. We laid it all out. We presented it to leadership and said, if we'd have done this, we'd have saved $50,000 and everyone's
Mm,
happy, right? So
mm,
those are not useful, right?
right.
Go
Right.
with, we got a problem. Let's put a team on it. You have to decide how big, how far, how fast, given whatever the situation is from it, and let them go try, and then document that. And then afterwards, have a post-mortem that said, well, what did we learn and how do we use that? And I have never done one yet that did not improve something that we were already doing. Sometimes it's a giant leap and boy, we're
Mhm.
celebrating. But I find it's the old joke about being, it took me 20 years to be an overnight success. It's the rare one that you crush it right out of the gate. Many
Sure.
times it's a culmination of all the things you've done before, and finally you get to go execute it.
Mhm. So there's a question that came in from Paul. What's your opinion of training an in-house continuous improvement group for projects versus hiring an outside group, one of the big consulting firms, to work within a large company?
I've done both and I've had success with both. Long term, if you're going to win, you've got to have your own resources inside, right?
Mhm.
I like to have a few resources across all the businesses and then bring them together to do projects. And so then they can take that back to their businesses versus having massive groups. And I don't like to have them at the center. In other words, I don't want them to be corporate led. At the center, you might have
Mm,
the person in charge or one of the two to be, but the people need to be in the business every day. I'm a huge fan of using consultants to come in and teach us something we don't know how to do, but we
mm,
need to embrace that, own that, and go do it. So first of all, don't recreate. As I said before, there's a lot of really smart, whether it's 80/20 or lean or finance or M&A or time. There's a lot of great, brilliant programs. Use that and bring it in, make it your own, embed it in part of your culture, make it how you do your business. It's a game changer to them. Takes a little
mm,
while though, and it does
mhm.
take some investment.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill, I want to ask, I think there's two follow-up questions related to, lean as a condition of employment. One question is, what advice do you have for CI leaders and organizations where the culture isn't there yet? Where maybe people feel like, I mean, we don't have to do this, it's optional, they're just not doing it at all or thinking about it even.
Well, I think there's a couple things that have to happen. So if you're the CI leader, the first thing you got to do is get your plan together, right? You need to listen to leadership, figure out where they're all going, then take your plan and say, this plan will get us there. Then you need to ask for buy-in. If you cannot get buy-in at the top, it will not matter, right? If the people are not walking the walk and talking, they're going to talk the talk, but if they're not walking it, it's almost guaranteed to be at best mediocrity, right? So it's okay to come into a bad culture. In fact, it's almost preferable to come into one because a culture that is failing is looking for leadership and looking for wins. So don't think
Mm,
coming into a successful culture is going to make it easier. In fact, a successful company is much harder to rule and run and grow because they think they already know what they're doing. But
mhm,
if you come in one that has a lot of opportunity and you have people that have a good culture who are going to listen and want to be part of it, and you can bring your skill set, you have a home run on your hands, and it's going to get
mhm,
there quick because they want to listen and they want to make it better, right? Just
mhm.
my experience.
Yeah. And I think the second follow-up question around lean as a condition of employment. Let's say you've acquired a company, there's culture problems, there's leadership problems. Like, how do you find the balance between trying to coach leaders up versus deciding we need to manage them out?
That is the hardest part of my job, the most challenging piece, and it's the one that makes all the difference in the company. So when I come in, and I'm just going to say I take it from day one, I have four steps I go through. First is get the goal. That's me and the CFO and the board figuring out what good looks like from a financial standpoint. How much money do we have? How far we got to get there by when? The second thing is I take that goal to my team and we're going to build the strategy and they're going to own that strategy. To me, it's super important that the team owns the strategy because if it's my strategy, they're going to say, well, I told you it would never work to begin with. And they don't feel ownership. So they've got to own it for all the right reasons. The third step, and I can do this in 100 days. Doesn't have to be 100 days, but the third step that we get to is now we're going to organize the company around that strategy. This is where
Mhm.
people start showing, are they bought in or not? Up until this, it's all talk, right? We've talked about where we're going. We've talked about our plans. Step three, we start taking action. We start
Mhm.
organizing the company to do it. We start canceling projects. We start putting more resources on the big project. People will show themselves to either be blockers or leaders at that point, right? It's not
Mhm.
about getting things perfect. It's not about you or being close about it. But that leader is going to say, this is my strategy. And I say, that's great. How are you going to organize yourself? The ones who really believe and do it start right away. If they don't,
Mhm.
this is where it becomes a conditioned employment for me. I look at them, I talk to them, I do everything I can. If they can't get there, either because they don't want to, or they don't know how, or they're incapable, and they're not going to move, that person's going to leave the role. For sure,
Mhm.
leave the role, most likely leave the company. So,
Mhm.
somewhere in that third step, and for me, it's about 90 to 120 days after I start, we
Mhm.
will start seeing leadership change within the organization.
Mhm.
And I'm very clear about it. And I
Yeah.
and if I don't do it, we will never get the company aligned. It'll
Mhm.
never happen.
Yeah. There's a question from Michelle, I think is a good follow-up to what you said there, Bill. What leadership mindset shifts do you believe are essential for Lean to stay effective in the next generation of organizations? Or even today, is that different than what's necessary in today's organizations?
I don't know if it's different or not, but I see a couple really keys. One is a spirit of continuous learning, right? Lean is all about you got to go change something, right? There's a way to make this better. And you have to have people who have the energy, the drive, the desire, the curiosity to figure out what better is. You've got to dedicate time to it. They got to train people on how to do just the process. And then they got to be willing to spend the money to get in there and go do it. And they need to do it themselves as well, right? So it's that type of mind shift to do it. If you think you're doing everything perfect, or you just don't have the will to go to it, you will. It's not just lean. You're not going to do anything. Prepare
Right.
for failure on that,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
Because you really don't have a choice. You can either go forward or you can stay behind. Let's just take the world today. The world is as crazy as it's ever been. There's always been good times and bad. We're in whatever we are right this second. Whether you like it or not, there are things going on around the world that is affecting us. We have to change in order to do it. So for
Mhm.
us, that is a huge impact on our supply chain. And we're starting to ask ourselves, well, we're getting it from here. Can we get it from somewhere else? The amount of change that it takes to move a product, not just from to a different vendor, but across the world. Maybe it's language differences. Maybe the codes are different. Maybe I got to have different certificate. All this stuff is exhausting. Not
Right.
everyone's going to want to go do that. So it's that continuous learning and then the ability to get in there and make something happen that makes all the difference. That's really that lean mindset.
Mhm. So, there's another question here I think might be helpful. We have a lot of, people in the audience who might describe themselves as continuous improvement professionals. What advice would you give a CI professional who wants to move into broader operations or P&L responsibility someday?
I find that CI professionals are the absolutely perfect operational piece. They don't all want to do it, but they will know the business better than anyone else, right?
Mhm.
They know where the factories are, they know how they're laid out, they know what's working, what's not working. And what is operations other than just running the company? Right. So that is the absolute core for it. Now, since you know all of that, then you have to ask yourself, are you set up to go do the next piece? And you'll
Mhm.
see this in continuous improvement people. Some people are very focused on being a subject matter expert. That's what they are. They come in to do that piece and they move on. Other ones are a little more expansive. You will have the opportunity just by virtue of what you're doing. You're going to be in front of the CEO. You're going to be in front of the segment leaders, the business unit leaders. You will get to see them all. There is no better role to showcase what your skill set is than a CI professional. So with that, then you just got to decide what it is you want to go do next, right?
Mhm.
It's a little harder sometimes to go over into sales because generally sometimes it's a personality, but mainly it's because they already see you as being an operational effectiveness, right?
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
want to be in sales, you want to get something that's outside of operations, try to get them to start doing CI on it. Sales could use more
Mhm.
CI than anyone else. Go in
Yeah.
there, become the expert in that function. That's how you get the next role.
Mm. Let's see. There's so many. I'm trying to think how to sequence questions. There's probably no one best way to sequence them. So, I'm going to go back to maybe if you can elaborate on lean within sales. So Stephen had submitted a question in advance. You've touched on this a little bit when you were talking about carpet land, as you and people tend to call it. But Stephen asked, what's been your favorite or most impactful implementation of lean for office work? Like, I don't know if that's a sales example or even something else from the land of carpets.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's a couple of things to think about, and it's really we've done it across all of them. From a sales side, there's this black art piece to it that's always mystical and mystifying, probably even to the salespeople themselves, right? Where you really have your impact is getting them to get the information from the customer back into the company. A lot of times that's around CRMs and all that. You have to come up with tools that are simple and easy, and they can do it on the run. Laying out that process using a Kaizen on it is about the only way you can get there. Salespeople typically never think about doing it that way, right?
Mm,
They know what they're doing is not working. They come out of the customer, they get in their car, they drive. I'm talking about an outside salesperson. By the time they get back to their office, they've forgotten whatever is be. So sometimes they can write it down, but maybe you can create an app. Maybe there's a website. Maybe there's a certain form. There's all these types of things that a continuous improvement mindset on them will absolutely have a huge impact for them. Now, that's one. Probably the most impactful thing I've ever seen in carpet land, as you called it, Mark. I love that term, is around engineering and looking at the intake around new products that customers are wanting, right?
mhm.
Constantly, that salesperson comes back in and says, "Oh, I went and saw my customer. Boy, they've got this product they want to do. Let me just tell you all about it." You have to decide if that product is worthy of your time. Sometimes it's just a salesman trying to figure out something to sell, which is not a bad thing. But just because he can sell it doesn't mean we want to make it, right? Doesn't
Mhm.
even mean we can make money on it. Having a filter that has to go through a lens that looks at is so critical. Engineering needs to have a way of pushing back and not to say no, but to create a hurdle so you're not bringing in all this extraneous noise, which has its own issues with it as well. Continuous improvement will have a master effect on that. I'll give you one really easy example. So we had one engineering team that everything would come through, and it was the design team. That was kind of the front load piece of it. What we wound up doing was we really had big projects and then small projects. I'm using very simple terms. On the small projects, it was simple design changes, it was parts, it was some things like that with it. The big project was a true NPI, a new product introduction, right? We split those up. We redesigned how engineer was taking it. We redesigned the filter on both sides of that. What that did was it allowed us to get more of that daily business in, which is really what most of our customers were looking for, as opposed to clogging everything up with the one random NPI project that came in. And it put the right hurdles because they're very different. The size is very different. The impact on the organization is very different. Laying that out allowed us to grow our business in a much more meaningful way, and it made our customers happy.
Yeah. Um, Another question kind of related to maybe culture and leadership styles. Morrison submitted this question. Empathy is often seen as a hallmark of great leadership, yet research suggests that overall empathy levels may be declining. Do you agree with this, or do you see this trend impacting leaders' ability to drive change and transformation efforts? It's the
I
role
agree
of
with both of those statements, right?
yeah.
Empathy is what people want to feel like they're heard and heard in a meaningful way. And people every day get more jaded, right? We just watch the news. We're it's like a tidal wave of stuff coming at us. We hear, particularly if you're in a big organization, you just hear so much stuff coming at you. After a while, you just start tuning it out. But the
Mhm.
person who can keep in front of them, keep their humanity while still doing the right thing from the company side has a special gift and can really lead the organization to great heights and do tremendous things for for themselves, their people, and their company. So yeah, people empathy is absolutely critical. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about weaving through it. So as a CEO, there's nothing more than I want to do than take care of that individual. I do town halls all the time. I do them in person. I do
Mhm.
them online, things just like this. And at the end, and the majority of it's Q&A, like what we're doing right here. And I'll get a question, and this is not quite made up, but it's close enough. Well, we were in one. A woman stands up and goes, we have terrible insurance, right? And she
Mhm.
went on to relate a story that she had a sick child and it was going to be devastating for them. There's absolutely nothing I wanted at that moment than to go take care of her and help her in any way possible, right? But at the same time, I've got an obligation to almost 10,000 other employees out there to make sure that I have the right benefit package that everyone can afford, that gives meaningful resources to them and things like that. Because I can put together an insurance package that'll take care of everything. No one can afford to buy it, right? I can
Mhm.
have one that everyone's really happy with, but they are mad about it as soon as anything goes
Right.
wrong. So as the leader, I have to navigate that way through that. And how do you do it? Well, you rely on experts. They'll tell you what the statistics are. You look at the population of your own company and you start saying, well, where are we? What is it? Sometimes you're in kind of a bulge situation where all the needs are being taken up by people in the middle of your population. Other times you're a barbell where that's on the end, like you've got an older and a younger population. So
Mhm.
you have to know what you have and you have to design it from that. At the end of the day, it's got to be meaningful and impactful, and at the same time affordable for everyone in there. It's
Right.
hard to do that, and it's hard to sit up there and listen to people tell you things like that. And you care deeply, and you want to do the right thing. So, being that leader and dealing with it, I think, is being able
Mhm.
to listen to it, do the best you can, and still be able to go home at night and live with yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. We've got a couple really good questions that question from Reza. Um, what role do you see AI playing in either supporting lean or maybe more broadly? I mean, for being an industrial company, what things are you thinking about or looking at in terms of AI and helping the business more broadly?
Yeah, I think AI is extraordinary and going to be extraordinary beneficial to us. And I'm just going to go back and make an example. It's like computers, right? We didn't want to do computers. They came in. What were we going to do with it? Can you imagine running your business today without having, an ERP or some type of software that you're using for it? AI is the same thing, right? In and of itself, it's meaningless for us in business. But everything from helping you write a letter that maybe used to take a half a day to put together to now you can have it write one for you. You better read it and make sure it fits what you're looking for. You're going to have to
Right.
clean it up. But it does the extraordinarily great job of defeating the white page. Same thing in what used to be copy for marketing and websites and all that. All that stuff has gone from you having to be a super expert. You can take in the history, you'd have your engineering person who truly understood the product, and you'd have your marketing person who truly understood how to go sell it, but neither one knew how the other, and it was translating that through it. Today, AI can help both sides. You can
Mhm.
train that agent, that GPT, by loading with information, and then you can ask it those questions, and then both sides can look at it and say, "Hey, is this good for us?" I think
Mhm.
that's true across all groups, everything we're doing. I can take a massive set of data in an Excel chart, upload it into a chat bot, ask it a few questions, and it will go through in seconds or less and absolutely give me what I asked of it from it.
Mhm.
Is it perfect? Is it? No, of course not. So it's helping us shorten the cycle and do it at a lower cost price point. Now, there's
Mhm.
two outcomes of that. Certain people are going to be like, first of all, it's going to take my job. Either I don't want to learn the new stuff, or I'm the person over there writing that copy today. Where am I going to go? Well, I think it's
Mhm.
going to go just back like it was with the computer. It didn't take people's jobs. It forced us to upskill ourselves, learn new pieces. You didn't have to do it, right? But you did do it, right?
Mhm.
Today, when I started my career, this is how old I am. You used to call your secretary and they'd come in and they would do dictation, or you'd speak into a little recorder and the tape would come
Mhm.
in your secretary or your assistant or the letter pool, whoever it was would put that in letter. Today we do it ourselves, right? And assistants, the job has expanded, became more powerful. They're doing event planning, they're doing coordination, travel, and all that. It's uplifted it. It's the same thing
Mhm.
here. It's something that's going to make us all better, as all of us better than we were. Not only is it in things like I said, marketing, we use it in manufacturing. We can look at it today. We can have a lens, a camera focused on whatever it is we're making, and AI, we can train it and it'll say, is that meeting specifications or not? And it can do it in a blink of an eye. It can look at
Mhm.
more, faster, and give better results than what was doing it before, right?
Yeah.
So it is making us all better. On us, it makes us have to upskill ourselves, get comfortable, learn what it was, just like we did with cell phones and fax machines and computers. And now we're in AI, right? I can't wait to
Mhm.
see what comes next.
Yeah. There's another really good question here. Might be hard to answer because I don't know if you've, let's say, for example, ever been on the board of a health system, but another question about healthcare and maybe it prompts other thoughts from your perspective. You mentioned insurance and benefits and how that can pressure a business or employees. The question as it came in what ways do you think lean principles could drive large scale transformation across healthcare, particularly in addressing inefficiencies, costs, and disparities?
I have been on the board of hospitals. I was involved with university hospitals in Cleveland. I was on the Ahuja board there for them, so I'm very
Oh, great.
familiar with it. And it was something we actually talked about all the time, right? Or it was around lean and efficiencies from it. If you look at the cost of what all this crazy stuff is costing us, you would think they're rolling in money. They are not rolling in money. It's just the opposite. And a
Hmm.
lot of it's dealing with horrible efficiencies around it. So my daughter's a dentist. I sit on the board. I have friends that are doctors. They take 1 minute in front of a patient, and that 1 minute, now I'm not exactly sure what the ratio for each one is, translates into an hour's worth of charting for them,
Hmm.
right? So they'll spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes with a patient. We've all experienced it. Then they'll spend 20% of their day, 10% of their day with their customers. And then the remaining 80 to 90% is documenting everything, right? Imagine the amount of lean that opportunities that are available in a system that is that skewed to measuring and monitoring things. Imagine the opportunities. Imagine what AI can do with that. It takes a combination of technology, it takes a combination of AI to go through and look at these things and then get those notes on there and get it in a way that can be followed up with it. Because it's all about patient records. It's how they get paid. It's how we make sure we're not giving too many drugs to one patient. We're not going to hurt them. And we have to do this through a veil of secrecy. We have HIPAA laws that protects people's rights to privacy off of it. It is a huge load. Hospitals are begging for this type of stuff. Now, they may not know it's called lean. They may not have been on a factory floor, but if you walk in there as a CI, if you can understand that world, right, dealing with HIPAA, dealing with human emotion, we talked about empathy, dealing with all of that, and with doctors who are working 100+ hours a week, it is an opportunity right for help. But it is a hard place to go and make those changes because you get something wrong, someone dies. It makes
Hmm.
people very cautious.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you make that connection. It's fun. Interesting those two questions came in together. I very recently, as a patient, signed an authorization for a healthcare provider to have the visit be recorded, and an AI tool is going to write the first draft of the visit notes. And that healthcare provider, of course, is going to review it, but that takes less time than writing it from scratch. And we can think about, well, what's really value adding? And this provider was excited. She said, I can see a couple more patients per day. Not that, and that's fulfilling, right? It's not, it's
That's
just
what they went to
shifting
school
what
for, not
it's
to do
shifting. Yeah,
paperwork.
right. To help patients. So, back to your theme of AI helping us instead of completely replacing us. Maybe we have time for there's two more questions. We'll wrap up by the top of the hour. One question, looking back, what do you wish more CI professionals understood about the CEO's perspective?
It's a really, really great question. It's one of the things I try to do all the time. And I see as is put myself in someone else's shoes.
Mm.
What are they trying to do? Right. When I look at the board, when I look at investors, limited partners, I'm like, what's going on? Like I think about my board, and one of the things that we do is when we have a board meeting, I like to bring in other people who are in the company. One, it gets to showcase them and their talents. Two, the board gets to meet people within it, and it really drives a connection, right? Every time I have to have a conversation with the person coming in, I say, listen, you may think they know everything, but they think about this company 4 times a year. And that 4 times a year probably translates into 20 hours. You do 20 hours by Tuesday, right? So remember who you're talking to and remember that they probably don't understand with it. Well, it's the same thing here with the CEO and continuous improvement. We all, I can assure you, that CEO is nothing more they're motivated than to run this company efficiently, productively, keep everyone happy, have exceptional opportunities for their employees, be tremendous partners for their customers and suppliers, and give a superior return to their investors. I promise you, that's all they think about. And continuous improvement is a huge portion of that. So when
Mhm.
you're saying you're going to know that that person is already on your side. Now, what they're looking for is for you to tell them succinctly, here's the opportunity, and here's what I would do about it.
Mhm.
Right. And you need to recognize that the problem you're facing may not be the whole biggest problem in the company. Right. You may be thinking about this one factor, which is super important. And I promise you it is important. But their other division may be completely on fire. Right. And that means that you're not going to get the machine. That means you're not going, or maybe you are going to get the machine. Right. So understand that there's a lot of priorities out there. And this is
Mhm.
how we started off this meeting, which was you need to get focused on it. As a CI professional, it's your job to help them understand the hand that they're playing so they know which card to go with next. If you can come in and say, this right here will save you $100 million. I'm just making up a
Mhm.
number, and their whole budget is 200 million. You just became the belle of the ball, right? They want
Yeah.
to do nothing more than talk to you. So just keep that in mind. Everyone's got an angle they're coming from.
Yeah. Well, Bill, thank you for everything that you've shared. Thank you to everybody for the questions, and Bill, thank you for sharing your answers and experiences and guidance for us. So I want to encourage people again, check out Bill's previous book, The 80/20 CEO, and his second book coming out real soon, From Panic to Profit. So you can find those on Amazon. Bill's website, I put a link to it in the chat, billcanady.com, Canady, billcanady.com. And, Bill, I've appreciated getting to know you over the past year, not quite year, but having you on the podcast, on my Lean podcast, to talk about your first book. And this is kind of like a live podcast today with other people's questions. So I want to thank you for that. We're getting thank yous coming in on in the chat. But maybe, with the minute or two that we have left, Bill, I don't know if you have any final thought that you might want to share with the audience here before we go.
Really just echoing what you said. I think you said it very well. And I looked through the list here, like Reza just said, thank you, Reza and Lynn and everyone else that you're coming through. This is so exciting for me and such an honor to be here. It's this type of work that you're doing every day that makes the difference. It makes it possible for these companies to be successful. It makes them for to grow, which means more jobs, more opportunities for each and every one of us. So, you're doing, as I always like to say, you're doing the Lord's work out there. Keep doing it. It's important. Sometimes it feels like you're maybe echoing in the darkness. I assure you, these are important jobs. So thank you all. I hope everyone has a great and wonderful day.
All right. Well, thanks. Thanks again. Thanks to everybody for attending. We look forward to seeing you at future KaiNexus webinars. If you'd like to go through the webinar library, you can go to kainexus.com/webinars. We don't have any future webinars to announce yet, but we aim to do these every month. So please stay tuned. We'll email you about future webinars. Bill, thanks again so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.